redemption. Right now, their priority is on securing another season in the LCS. They are fighting for that 4th place spot. And we are now jumping into Champion Select, and already a bit of prioritization from Vitality on these early game junglers. We may very well see a Lee Sin ban come out from Vitality as well.
Well, that Lee Sin from Maxlore took a little while to get up and running, but played very, very well in the later stages of the game. But, you know, I've tripped myself up so many times today. ROCCAT actually selected red side, Vedius, as is on your screen right now. They won the coin toss, so they'll be picking on sides 1 and 3 in terms of games. With Vitality on blue, Elise, Gragas removed, Shen, LeBlanc, and Olaf. But all of the super OPs are still there. Camille's up, Varus is up. Who else am I missing here? Rengar's still up as well.
Jace has been taken off the board. Now, if you're Vitality, the priority has to be the Varus. We saw it come out multiple times, or we saw it come out in the Fnatic series against the Unicorns of Love. We saw how devastating it can be in the late game. His wave clear is phenomenal, and he's an all-round, he is the strongest AD carry. That's why on the next patch, he's taken a lot of hits, but we haven't hit there yet. We're still on 7.4, but fortunately, with all of these power picks being left open, ROCCAT may give away 1, but they get 2 in return.
They do indeed. Wadid's going to get his hands on that. Malzahar, Maxlore will be playing the Rengar. As a reminder, 7.4, not the patch you're playing on live, and Orianna is disabled for the remainder of the European LCS this weekend. What did Vitality lock in? Cabochard has taken the Camille bait in the past a couple times. It's not necessarily worked out for him quite as well. Cabochard's also played Fiora up in that top lane, and Vitality instead going to go for that sort of soft counter to Malzahar in Zilean, and Nukeduck's going to lock in the Ryze.
So interesting that Vitality put so much priority on getting themselves their mid laner on this rotation, because now it's actually going to allow ROCCAT to continue pinching the jungle pool. Note that they can now continue banning away champions like the Graves, the Kha'Zix can be taken off the board, and then Djoko's going to be forced to go back onto things like the Rek'Sai, where he's just not going to have the same level of impact that Maxlore can on this Rengar, where we have to remember, when Maxlore did get his hands on this Rengar, he was snowballing like crazy back in the UK scene when I was an opponent jungler to Maxlore. This was one of his go-to picks. This was what he made his name for. And he's definitely demonstrated his proficiency on it in the LCS so far, even in his losses. I think back to their game versus Giants, he actually had a great game on that too.
Yeah, 2 games played, 2 losses for now. But I want to see a stronger early to mid game from Maxlore than we saw from their series against Origin on Thursday. We're into phase 2 of picks and bans, and ROCCAT very heavily targeting Cabochard in the top lane. Gnar is gone, Rumble is gone. Phaxi locked in that Renekton blind. On the other side, it's the ADC bans. Let me rephrase that. It's the top, bottom lane bans with Jhin and Ziggs. Ziggs isn't an ADC, but has been played there a number of times. Where does Hjarnan look to play? I mean, Ashe is still up and available, with Jhin off the table.
Sivir as well, something that Hjarnan's brought out a number of times. We're also looking at a mid laner for ROCCAT, and my immediate thought goes towards Cassio for Betsy. You'll scale pretty nicely. You're setting up for a good 1-3-1 if you actually do go for the Cassio. You have a lot of teamfight prowess as well. You could also shift for the Syndra, but I don't think it works as nicely in this team composition. For Vitality, they should look at considering going for the Nautilus and the Graves. We talked about it earlier on. Surprised ROCCAT actually didn't put many bans in that general direction.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing for them to do now is just go safe. You have a lot of damage with the Ryze, the Graves, and the Varus. So just round it out with a tank. Get that Nautilus up there. It's pretty safe.
But
it's Cabochard.
Exactly. I mean, if you look down Cabochard's champions played list, yes, there is a Shen and a Poppy at the top, and then you've got Camille, Jace, Olaf, Fiora, Renekton, Trundle. Cabo likes his carries, and Vitality are going to commit to this Kennen in the top lane. A lot of damage, a little bit of split push power. Kennen into the Renekton as well. It's going to be okay in the early stages, but it runs the risk of getting bullied.
I mean, Kennen has always been considered a good pick into Renekton because of how easy it is to kite back. Once you get the level 3 mark in the Lightning Rush, you can harass very effectively during the laning phase. And the thing about Kennen is he will be able to outscale the Renekton, given that Vitality is forcing this 1-3-1 composition. They have fantastic wave clear with the Varus and the Graves combo, which means that all Vitality have to do is not make too many aggressive plays in the early game. As long as they have a solid laning phase, they will scale nicely into a point where they just straight up outscale ROCCAT. The onus is on ROCCAT to force plays in the early game. Maxlore is on the Rengar. The level 6 mark for him is really going to be a big factor because ROCCAT want to try and force fights. Dragon, Baron, these sort of areas on the map is where this composition can really shine.
All right, so let's take a look at how quickly Maxlore can get there. How well he can make that play. Use that thrill of the hunt, find targets, and there's no traditional tank on either side. So there was a word that Deficio used an excessive amount yesterday, explosive.
Ooh.
And we're gonna see whether or not some explosive fights will happen. That was Unicorns versus Fnatic in game 3, a game that just had back-to-back skirmishes and team fights, and these two team comps, to me at least, look like there's a lot of possibility for that happening.
All I want is for them to kill each other, QuickShot, because I feel that when you look back at the ROCCAT series against Origin, ROCCAT didn't do a great job in game 1 of getting any kills. It took them a little while.
Yep.
40 plus minutes is when they actually got themselves the first kill on the board. But now I feel they actually have a great composition for forcing things in the early game. They have pushing power top, they have pushing power bot, they have pushing lanes, so ROCCAT should be able to make things happen.
All right, pushing lanes with a Rengar that can gank at 6. Can ROCCAT make it work? They had a fantastic game 3 against Origin after over an hour and a half of gameplay on Thursday. And that's the type of ROCCAT that we really need to see. Especially important because ROCCAT are currently tied with Giants at the bottom of the table. 1 win and 7 losses. ROCCAT tied in 4th. If they beat Vitality now in their last game of cross-group play, they will take sole control of 4th and have a series victory over Giants as we start that second round robin. And that is crucially important for ROCCAT if they want to avoid the promotion tournaments.
And when you look at the rest of Group 8 as well, Giants are in a favorable position, arguably, going into their series against ROCCAT based on what we've seen from this weekend. But also the fact that it's going to be super difficult to be able to take games off G2, take games off of Misfits, and even Fnatic. There was a lot of promising aspects from their play yesterday against the Unicorns of Love. So these wins this week are so important for both the bottom teams of Group A just because of how close they are.
Yeah, and of course, the other side, Group B, Vitality, they've got a cushion. Check out that moose.
That's a deer, mate.
Is that a deer?
That is a deer.
Oh. I don't actually know the classification difference. I got in trouble for the Renekton crocodile versus alligator thing a little while ago. Evidently, I just don't know my animals that well. Sorry.
Backtrack.
I was talking to Group B, yes. You know, Vitality... yes, I am right. Vitality, on the other hand...
They have a cushion.
Because Origin lost. Because Origin lost to ROCCAT. Vitality have got that 2-game safety net, that 2-game breathing room, and they want to make it 3. If Vitality win the series, they all but guarantee themselves that safe spot.
Yep.
It'll be very, very difficult for Origin in its current form to win games.
And there are multiple implications for a lot of the other teams too. I believe that Unicorns of Love locked themselves in a playoff spot should Vitality lose this series. So they might be looking at the Lions for a bit of support in this series.
Yeah, definitely going to be on ROCCAT's shoulders to book UOL. Let's take a look at Vitality and AOD, as well as Steelback in this bottom lane. Varus, Zilean, going to be trying to push into that bottom lane as Djoko's going to push into mid lane. Flashing forward, and that's an easy first blood. Djoko and Nukeduck combo him down.
Djoko, he started on the Raptors. He then took his red, went into the river, took himself the Scuttle Crab, and then rotated around for mid for a very easy gank. We talked about the pushing lanes for ROCCAT. Betsy, he was pushing up mid. Nukeduck doesn't have the range to be able to trade back effectively against the Azir. This enabled Betsy, or it gave Djoko the window to just get that slight edge behind with the red buff, and with the early damage of Graves, it was more than enough to be able to get the kill down onto Betsy. It did cost a couple summoner spells, but I think that's worth it for first blood.
Oh, absolutely. Can Maxlore make anything happen while Nukeduck still has that flash unavailable to him? Got Ghost up and caught a glimpse of Djoko making his way up to the top lane. Potentially diving this Renekton, or at least putting pressure onto the tower. Red buff is up. Phaxi's going to slice and dice. Gets out of range of end of the line. done a bit of damage to the tower. Now starting to back away. Maxlore's making his way up. Summoner spell traded. The Shuriken tags Phaxi, and Djoko in the first 4 minutes really stamping his authority on the game.
A lot of early pressure from Djoko, utilizing the fact that...
Ooh, look at that. Hold the thought. Maxlore jumps forward. It's double buffs on double buffs. Here comes Phaxi. He kills Djoko and gets double buffs? Are you kidding me?
Wow. So Vitality, they overstayed just a little bit too much in the top lane. The quick responding teleport from Phaxi is going to do wonders for this top lane matchup, because early on the Kennen, he has the range advantage. He's just going to be bullying around this Renekton. It is super difficult to push in the Kennen, but now with the experience advantage, the gold that he's going to gain, as well as the double buff that Phaxi is now sitting on, it's just going to make that matchup so much easier for him during the early laning.
So that was an interesting start to the game.
Yeah, I mean, we had nothing but praise for Djoko. Because he not only gets first blood in mid, he paths very effectively, he then clears top side of his jungle, then again tries to push another advantage top. And then they overstep, they just make this slight mistake, which could very well hurt them very significantly.
If Phaxi can make use of that advantage, Phaxi, of course, on that Renekton, it's the first time that he's handling this particular champion in the spring split. And double buff's going to play into his favor. Maxlore going to leap onto Nukeduck. The bowler strike sidestepped. That looked all too easy. And Nukeduck just wanders away. Did use the ghost, but Maxlore needs to hit those skill shots if he wants to follow up for the kills.
Dude, when they run really fast, skill shots are hard, okay?
And Nukeduck dodged, right? So it's two parts.
Yeah, it's two parts. Props to Nukeduck for avoiding that. But look, Djoko, he's coming to get his buffs back.
He is indeed. Djoko wants these. Phaxi, no flash, remember, gets stunned up. Cabochard looking for more end of the line. And the last kill goes to Cabo. He donates it.
So it was a long comp, is what we've identified. The buff transfer has now been completed because Cabo is now the one with the double buff. Yep. I like the movement from Djoko back to the top lane because Phaxi, he wanted to be a bit more aggressive in the top side. He wanted to utilize this advantage, but look at Betsy.
Betsy's getting dunked on. Spell Flux and Overload. He's just bursting him down. Still got a cleanse available, but nothing else.
So Betsy trying to play a little bit too aggressively into Nukeduck when there was a pretty big minion wave there. There was no real need. He could have just let the wave push, clear it out. But we have to backtrack to this top lane gank because the movement from Djoko is very good. He realized that Phaxi, he didn't have the flash. He was trying to push the lane back in. And now he's level 6 on Cabo.
Ooh, Phaxi stepping very far forward. Oh, Vedius, 6.5 minutes. Djoko's had multiple back-to-back-to-back successful ganks. Tower first blood as well. It's 2,000 gold before 6 minutes. And Cabo's not done pushing with those double buffs.
Well, the thing is, remember what we talked about during Champions, like for Vitality, they are building a pure 1-3-1 split push composition, and for Cabo to be this far ahead this early on is going to make life so difficult for the side of ROCCAT. Kennen naturally already outscales the Renekton when you get to the later stage of the game, and the fact that he's already got a significant level advantage, he's sitting on a fair amount of gold. This is just a great setup for the side of Vitality.
And looking at Vitality's wards, setting up inside ROCCAT's jungle, so Maxlore rather, fully spotted out. Gonna quickly take a look at gold differences between jungles. Do not let those CS numbers fool you. Djoko is 500 gold up. A kill, an assist, and a tower first blood playing into his favor. And this 2v2 in the top lane is getting very scary. Phaxi takes a stun from Cabochard. Gets those repeated autos down, and Djoko's also going to steal these Krugs away.
And note that Nukeduck is now starting to put a bit more pressure down onto Betsy as well, because he's constantly pushing in the mid wave. He's been able to complete the tier. Betsy hasn't had an opportune time to actually go back yet after his initial death. So Nukeduck sitting on that gold advantage as well as the experience advantage means that he can now always follow Djoko whenever he's looking to play aggressively.
All right, Maxlore's power farming in the jungle has unlocked level 6 marginally ahead of Djoko. A little bit of a challenge over the Brambleback. Who's going to smite this one down? Goes over to Djoko. Even gets a Thunderlord's proc for cheekiness factor onto Maxlore. And cool guys don't look at explosions. Djoko just walks away.
Yep. Easy invade. He knows he has the top pressure. He knows that Betsy is being pushed in the mid lane. And this early game with Vitality is fantastic. I'm just very impressed with what Djoko's been able to do with the lead that he accrued.
Yeah, very well played. The fan vote in favor of ROCCAT for now. Despite some of the early missteps or early positive plays, maybe is the better way to frame it, from Vitality. We'll just keep our eyes on how Vitality can keep this pressure up, because now there is still a lot of wave clear. You know, Azir, Sivir, they can sit in 2 lanes respectively and try hold these remaining outer turrets, mid and bottom. And as it stands, Hjarnan and Wadid, they've not left that lane just yet.
Exactly that. I think it's really worth highlighting that ROCCAT still have plenty of windows to come back into the game. You might have to shift the lane matchups a little bit. They might want to try and move this Renekton away from the Kennen as soon as they can, and put the Kennen up against someone who just naturally has more wave clear. Maybe move Betsy off to a side lane. Yes, you will lose some of the objectives around the map. The Dragon may end up going down. You may end up losing a tower. But if it can buy you time to get to that point in the game where you're strong enough to force these fights, where you're strong enough to be able to contest these objectives, that is what ROCCAT is looking for. And so far, they're not in such a deficit. The Vitality can just walk straight into their Nexus.
Yeah, Vitality gonna just push this advantage further. Djoko was picking up his red buff, and it looks like there's some vision being set up around Dragon. Nobody's prioritized this one just yet. And looking at the mini-map, Djoko moving towards the bottom lane. There's no one to gank, as Wadid had actually left that lane. So as Djoko's recalling, ROCCAT scrambling to make a play. And Phaxi just can't get in there at all.
But I like what ROCCAT is doing, right? Because they know that Hjarnan in the bottom lane, he's level 7, he's got the BF sword, he's fine to wave clear on his own. This enables Wadid to start moving around the map with Maxlore, so they can actually start getting a bit more vision control around the bottom half of Vitality's jungle. Betsy, because of the way the wave is bouncing back and forth, he's able to now actually get himself a push after he's completed the stinger. So ROCCAT are utilizing the fact that they have strong enough bottom half of the map where they can actually get themselves some control, which is why this is why we were talking about, like, things aren't entirely bleak for ROCCAT yet. Yeah. While the Kennen is very strong on the top side for Vitality, the bottom side is still fairly even for ROCCAT.
And also important to note, Vedius, you've touched on how Vitality want to look to set up a 1-3-1. Rengar is one of the best junglers to try and deal with the 1-3-1. If Maxlore can use that thrill of the hunt, get in a quicker pathing behind one of the split pushes, which is what Maxlore's trying to do right now. Stun onto Cabochard. Let's see where he goes. Takes a lot of damage, leaping forward to those savageries. Maxlore on the battle roll a little bit slow, and Cabo didn't even flash. Didn't even need to flash.
Nope. I think Maxlore should have been more patient. He had a lot of time left on the ultimate. We don't have time for that because there's a dive coming down bot.
There is indeed. Wadid's passive has been popped. Hjarnan is going to be backing away, and Vitality don't commit to that dive. I'm looking at what sort of support there is. Nukeduck moving away from lane, and Maxlore setting up. So it's 2 potential plays on both sides of the map, Vedius.
Yep. Vitality saw the play from ROCCAT in the top half of the map, so they're making the cross map. They know they have a minion wave coming. They've already started the push. They're going to be able to trade these towers, and Vitality actually have a slightly bigger wave, and they have 2 AD carries, so they should be able to take this tower down pretty quickly, along with Nukeduck there as support. This is almost guaranteed for Vitality.
Yeah, it feels that way. Look at the minion wave making its way in. Both sides waiting for the ability to knock over the structure. This will be the first time for ROCCAT in a moment or two, and Vitality secure the second temporarily. An even larger gold lead.
The bigger advantage for Vitality is they can very quickly shift over to the Dragon. ROCCAT can't really contest that objective because they still have their jungler and top laner in the top half of the map. Surprising that they actually decided not to go for it. Perhaps they were just aware of, hey, we don't actually know how much vision control ROCCAT has. We are aware that Phaxi does have TP, and if he flanks in, we could be in a bit of a dire strait. Let's just utilize the fact that we still have a gold lead. We're still better setting up for the 1-3-1. Let's not do any risky plays for the time being.
Yeah, not worth risking it, especially for a Cloud. If you were going to potentially set yourself up. True. Now, to be fair, I think Cloud Drake, at least a few of them, could help Vitality's comp. They want to be mobile. They want to play multiple lanes, as we've touched on. And now with ROCCAT having no outer turrets in top and bottom, is this the time that you would expect Hjarnan to maybe take a mantle defending mid? Although Azir is very good at that, so do you even consider taking Betsy away? How do you assign lanes when looking at ROCCAT's comp in the state of the game?
Well, the priority is on what objectives you can take, right? You want the non-TP people to be as close to the objective as possible, which is why you're seeing Maxlore and Hjarnan being kept to the bottom half of the map. Interesting that Phaxi's down here too. The reason for that is because you can see the minion wave is pushed all the way up towards where Cabochard is next to his turret. So Phaxi actually gains nothing from being up there. If he's with his team and Cabo starts pushing, then he can actually use his teleport to get back to the top side. But now Djoko, he is playing with fire right now. now.
He is indeed. These 3 members of Vitality down here. Teleport's available for Cabo. Chain of Corruption locks Phaxi down. He's stunned by a double time bomb. Flashes away to safety. Round Warp's going to buy a couple of seconds of time as Cabo gets knocked backwards. The Sand Soldiers time out, and ROCCAT, they donate a kill to Vitality.
The setup from ROCCAT was there, but the execution wasn't. Phaxi went in all by himself. There just wasn't enough follow-up to be able to guarantee the kills down onto Vitality. They had plenty of time to react, and they do so damn well. Vitality were able to not only get themselves a kill, but completely push ROCCAT away from that objective, and they keep their tower alive.
The amount of time that Phaxi and Maxlore spent just trying to set it up, waiting, communicating, it just didn't pay off. And it's one of those times it's like the idea is pretty good. It
was very good. They had a great setup. There was so much deep vision in the bottom half. Djoko had no idea that both Maxlore and Phaxi were there, but the moment Djoko spotted them, Vitality said, okay, a dive is coming, get ready, Cabochard, set up your wave so you can TP in. They used all of their ultimates onto Phaxi, and they just said, you stay there, Mr. Crocodile. You will not be allowed to move. And you can just see, look at the focus. So Maxlore's coming out from the flank because he wants to jump onto Steelback and AOD. The rest of ROCCAT aren't there to support. That TP alone is enough to zone away the rest of ROCCAT, effectively leaving Phaxi out to dry. There's nothing that he can really do. He only buys time for the rest of his team. And it was, again, just the setup from ROCCAT was good. The execution just wasn't.
I also caught on that replay there. It looked like Cabochard flashed into the one Sand Soldier that was pushed behind the rest of the wall. It looked like, just thanks to the terrain, he got sent packing. And that actually saved ROCCAT ever so slightly. Maybe another stunned unit or two could have allowed Vitality to follow up more. And I like the theory from ROCCAT. I think they picked a team composition which, with a Rengar, needed a little bit of time before they could really set up plays necessarily. And let's see if they can do it now, because the tower's under pressure. Chain of Corruption goes wide. Phaxi uses his dominance just to try and defend the tower. It ends up being a trade. Outer for inner. Phaxi's sent running away. I mean, it's a Phage and a Kindle Gem. There's no ways he can stand up to the damage that Vitality's putting out.
It's the best case scenario for ROCCAT. Just get some kind of objective back. There's no way you're going to be able to defend that turret. The great thing for ROCCAT here, though, is the fact that Hjarnan's actually been allowed to get onto this turret with absolutely no contest. This means that he's going to get a lot of free damage down. Now, Nukeduck, he's trying to come for a collapse, but Maxlore spots him. All
right, so a little bit of a blast cone hop. Maxlore can jump forward. Where's Wadid with the Nether Grasp? Making his way forward. Flash engage, not going to get used. We'll get Nukeduck's flash, Steelback's heal. And it was a cost of Thrill of the Hunt and On the Hunt. Yeah, Maxlore and Hjarnan throwing themselves in.
But now I feel that ROCCAT should actually invest more members into this tier 2 in the bottom lane. You know that Nukeduck has just gone back to base. Notice that he had to flash away from that. You also had a minion wave coming in. If you just send Betsy and Maxlore down to the bottom lane, you can look to actually force that tier 2 tower and then trade that early objective that happened up top. But ROCCAT, they're always playing just a little bit too restrained. They don't want to take that gamble. They don't want to risk the possible collapse coming out from Vitality.
Yeah, talking about Vitality and collapsing, look at the vision in that top quadrant. You know, while ROCCAT did not commit on the bottom lane, didn't have the vision, if Vitality wanted to, Wadid is spotted so many wards. Fantastic work, observers.
This was the setup for their tower take-up in the top lane. They knew that Cabo could just constantly push into the top side. There was always a promising setup for Vitality, and it's great to see them utilize this vision in order to net themselves an advantage.
What I like about what you just said, Vedius, is that was the setup, and after Vitality got the tower, they backed away. So now let's see them do it again.
Yep.
How do they place the wards? If you look at the inventory, 2, 4, 5, 6, about 8 control wards for Vitality at the moment. I love seeing that. And then it's just a matter of how they push that vision and which objective they want to play around. The outer mid turret is still standing for ROCCAT as they secure the Cloud Drake, and that has to be a priority actually for both of these teams.
The thing for Vitality is it's always going to be difficult to take that tier 1 in the mid lane, simply because it's an Azir and a Sivir. There's a lot of wave clear on the lineup of ROCCAT, and you always have to be aware of ROCCAT's ability to team fight. Even though they're at a deficit, this point in the game is not actually that much that ROCCAT could not win a fight. Vitality are not so far ahead that they would just ruffle stomp over the lineup of ROCCAT, and I think that's why they're leaving open these drakes. They're not willing to risk it. They're just taking safe objectives that they have probably set up for, so that every time they go for something, there is no possible collapse from the side of ROCCAT.
All right, so safe Rift Herald for Vitality, no interrupt. The Cloud Drake for ROCCAT. That movement speed will potentially help them to collapse. if they can find an opportunity. And despite Vitality, actually despite both teams sort of playing around the top lane, we've not looked at the AD carries a huge amount this game.
It's because all they've done is farm, Trevor.
It's wave click carries, right?
Yep.
Tier and Ghostblade for Steelback, and we'll take a look at the items in a second, but look at the, damage versus 3+ opponents in terms of the skirmishes, or in terms of, these fights as we're heading into the mid-game phase. Steelback significantly further behind Hjarnan in terms of damage when hitting 3 or more opponents.
Yep, and it just shows you that Hjarnan is more of that team fight style of AD carry. He's more about getting into the thick of things. It's even more evident with his total number of deaths because he likes to get in there. He likes to be involved in these fights. And he gets the damage down, but often it costs him his life.
All right, where is Hjarnan this time around? He's in the mid lane wave clearing. That's a 3-on-2 all of a sudden. Wadid and Maxlore anticipating the dive, but they don't even win in a 3-on-2. Counter, Maxlore, he dashes and flashes. That's the wrong way. That was not what you wanted. But luckily for Maxlore, he does not get punished.
That is not what you would expect from a 3 versus 2 in ROCCAT's favor. They just get pushed back like it was nothing for Vitality. Vitality now, what can they try and get off the map as a result? Remember, there's a lot of wave clears still available in the mid lane. They're not going to push onto that tier 3 tower in the top lane because they do not have a minion wave. There's no dragon for them to take either. So all it's really done is Vitality have demonstrated their dominance.
Well, flash forward from AOD. Betsy uses that sliding glide, gets himself to safety. Been a while since we've seen that one here on the European stage. Nicely done by Betsy. Now, mid lane turret is the focus. Looking at the vision setup, 1, 2, 3, about 4 or 5 Vitality control wards pushing deeper into ROCCAT's jungle. There's one just behind that banana bush above the inner second tier turret. What sort of information will that reveal? Only time will tell.
But going back to that trade up in the top lane, slight mistake from Wadid. I feel like that it was not the most optimal thing to be able to flash in and ult onto Cabochard because you're more likely than not to just get stunned up by his ultimate. Just be a little bit more patient. Either go onto the Graves and allow both Maxlore and Phaxi to put their attention down onto the Kennen, or instead just wait. Just wait a little bit longer as the Kennen tries to escape, then use your ultimate to follow up. And I think it was simply that ROCCAT wanted to get the jump on them, but Vitality read the play. They saw what was coming, and they were able to react accordingly. And it was so important for Cabo to get his ultimate off first before the CC comes down, because it is so difficult to be able to lock down a Kennen when he can lock you down in turn.
Yes. Only AoE damage. Despite not building AP, Cabo's going for that sort of split push style build with that blade. But regardless of that, a lot of AoE damage built into his kit. Combo that with Graves, they're the 2 most fed. Correction, they're the 2 only fed members on Vitality. And yeah, ROCCAT are going to have a bad time. It's still only a 2,000 gold game, but the pressure feels so much more. Like the way the game has played out, it feels like Vitality are further ahead than the metrics actually dictates.
Yep. And a lot of that just comes from the fact that Cabo has a 2-level advantage over Phaxi. The Crocodile really is struggling against Kennen. I have an interesting story about crocodiles.
Okay, hit me up.
So, I actually went on an African safari in Kenya, and we ended up staying in a crocodile camp. And
with the crocodiles?
Yeah, with the crocodiles. And so my sister, my mum, and I all had to share a tent in this crocodile camp, and my sister couldn't sleep because she was so paranoid of a crocodile walking in. So, I sang.
Please don't sing on podcast.
Why do birds suddenly appear, in order to calm her down so that she could fall asleep in this crocodile camp. Are you sure you don't want to sing it?
Hell no. That was enough of an aside. Crocodile camp story, round of applause in Berlin. What on earth is happening?
Hey, the things you do for family, man.
I know. Kudos to you. Kudos to you.
But I just want you to know that if you're ever feeling worried, that I would sing for you.
Well, look, I would be worried, but I'm not scared of this crocodile, okay? Phaxi's
Renekton not worth being afraid
not
of.
something that's going to keep me up at night for fear of it eating me, okay?
Nope.
1 and 2, he's been bullied all game long by a little electric hamster. We're not going to go further on that. We're done with animals. I'm not going to go that way. I actually have no idea how to handle that.
But you brought it back nicely. You were doing so well because it just rounds back to our point that Cabo is extremely strong. He is the reason why Vitality have so much pressure on the map. And now look at the minimap. You can see, ooh, the force.
There we go. The Shurima shuffle. Djoko can't even get away from that one. And with Djoko down, Dragon number 2 goes to ROCCAT. So if there's one thing ROCCAT is doing well, it's playing around the Dragon.
Good collapse from ROCCAT. They identify the Djoko. He's trying to set up vision for it. They want to try and contest this one because they identified in the top lane, hey, I actually think we're pretty strong, guys. Maybe we could win out on a fight. And just as he's doing it, ROCCAT find themselves the pick. Really good setup from Betsy to be able to just slide and glide in from behind, get the Shurima shuffle. 4 members from ROCCAT, easy collapse will result in another objective. And this is what ROCCAT needs to do, right? It's always about getting that preemptive setup, not allowing Vitality to be the ones to get that vision first so that ROCCAT can be the ones to catch them by surprise.
Let's see what ROCCAT can do with the Dragons. It's 25 minutes in. They're still behind, but they're getting some plays back. I think if you look at the combination of like Rengar, Azir, Sivir, itemization starting to hit 2 and, you know, working towards that 3rd item, that's the core that needs to carry.
Yep. And
I need to see Wadid lock some people down. We're 25 minutes in. I've not felt a huge amount of impact on that Nether Grasp. Gromp doesn't care about Sand Soldiers. And the only reason I bring that up is we've seen so many roaming, flash engage, Malzahar plays over the last few weeks that I want to see more from Wadid on this champion. It's such a powerful tool. Unfortunately, there are 2 QSSs.
Yep, makes things all good.
They were not there earlier, but at the very least, there are still targets. You know, get to Cabo before he gets his Maelstrom down. Tag AOD before he can use his Chrono Shift. Those are things ROCCAT can do to unlock not only Wadid, but the rest of the damage dealers.
But now, we're about 25 minutes into the game. Vitality are actually investing a lot of vision around Baron, not necessarily to set it up, but to make sure that they have control of it, because the worst case scenario is ROCCAT try to force a fight.
All right, defensive flash from Djoko. Maxlore gets caught out. This time around, Chain of Corruption will stop Phaxi from engaging. And while all that is going on, it was a defensive play from Vitality. Cabo continues to put pressure on the bottom
But
lane.
this is exactly what Vitality want to be doing. They have the 3-man unit in mid of Djoko, Steelback, and AOD constantly wave clearing, just deterring ROCCAT from being able to force fights, while Cabo goes off into a side lane, Nukeduck goes off into the other side lane, and it is just minion waves knocking on the doors of ROCCAT's base time and time again.
One thing ROCCAT did do from that push, though, the vision around the mid lane, just to the left of it, double controls and a couple of invisibles. Wadid's not going to be able to get in range to silence Cabochard, but at least some vision to work with, and ROCCAT still, you know, they're playing the map and they're playing Vitality. It's like 5-on-6 at the moment.
Yep.
Constantly trying to play around these waves. Teleport's been up for a little while. And you know, I'm going to go back to the Thursday series of ROCCAT Origin, where there was multiple times during the first 2 games of periods of inactivity.
Yeah.
Let's see how Vitality break that, because they've got a composition that doesn't necessarily have a great time starting a fight. You know, they really have to run at you with a Kennen.
I mean, it's very
or a
much
Ryze.
flanking, right? But the Vitality, they don't want to fight at all. It would be super bad for them to fight ROCCAT's composition, even especially at this point in the game where it's very quickly to snowball in ROCCAT's favor. You really want to maintain this gold advantage. Once you get about 3 items to the Kennen, where he really is impossible to deal with, he's already getting to that point, having completed the Frozen Mallet. But it's, right now, Vitality just, they're struggling in the mid lane in particular because ROCCAT aren't being afraid of splitting up because they have so much wave clear with Betsy and Hjarnan on this Sivir and the Azir. They're actually being able to gain some of the map back because of the amount of pushing and control that ROCCAT have. And this is why I feel that right now Vitality are struggling to fully optimize the split push. Phaxi is wave clearing against the Kennen just fine. Cabo isn't putting so much pressure down onto the Renekton that he's actually threatening to kill him.
Yeah.
The Ryze is just pushing in the top lane, but he's so afraid due to the lack of vision control coming out from Vitality that he can't really push past the river. It's that danger zone that you and I are so keen on that Vitality are always playing around. So even with this lead, Vitality is struggling to be as proactive as they would like to be.
Yeah, and of course it's playing on those safe calls, right? Don't put yourself in a risky position. We caught a glimpse there just in the bottom of your screen of Grabs and Freddy, the support staff for ROCCAT. Freddy, of course, former EU LCS top laner, former Renekton main as well. Definitely going to have a few words to Phaxi about that laning phase and the amount of pressure he was under. going into the next game. But ROCCAT, they got that mid outer turret. They're now even, 3 towers to 3. That gold lead is, it's insignificant now at 30 minutes into the game. And all of a sudden, ROCCAT with 2 dragons, they're the ones slightly more poised as you're going towards this next Ocean Drake. And then the next one being Elder. And we're scaling into this late game where Azir and Sivir become horrendously frustrating to deal with.
Now this is quite interesting what Vitality is doing, because they've realized that, hey, we can't really push top, so let's actually spend both our split pushes down to the bottom lane. Betsy won't be able to do very much on the top side, because he could overextend and get collapsed on. And we also have Teleport and Cabo. We have the ultimate from Nukeduck. We're actually in a great position to just take this tower down. This is a very nice adaptation from Vitality.
But how do ROCCAT respond? The answer is engage in AOD. There's the flash engage I wanted to see. Chrono Shift will get cast at the end of it, but AOD is caught between a rock and a hard place. The flash gets him to safety. Redemption buys some time as collateral damage bounces on the side. Betsy, the slide, the glide, the divide. Where is it? Not gonna pull the trigger, and ROCCAT throw everything at Vitality for nothing.
But again, Vitality are doing the right thing. Just buying time for Cabo to work his way down onto these turrets. You can see he's getting the chip damage down. They are avoiding the full 5-on-5 team fight the ROCCAT are so desperately trying to force.
Okay, ROCCAT are at least able to take the inner turret top lane, but they will likely lose this middle tower. How much damage can Hjarnan do to the minion wave? It buys a few seconds. Not enough to save the tower. Net gain still in favor of Vitality.
But the fact that ROCCAT could get themselves a tower back is still something. They have so much good vision control around Baron. They might even gamble for it. They have a feeling that Vitality's on the dragon. They have no vision of this.
There is no vision just yet. ROCCAT, they're committing. Phaxi's going to be joining this fight a little bit late.
Phaxi.
Where is the piercing arrows? Phaxi's on the back. He's onto Djoko. Djoko's running for his life as AOD. Once again, Chrono shifts himself. The fight is split. Baron's a target for the rest of ROCCAT. It's picked up. Maxlore smites it down. Now Nukeduck is the target. A flash forward from Maxlore. He finds the right direction for savagery this time. And ROCCAT take control of the game.
Fantastic decision-making from ROCCAT. They realized that Vitality had expended so many resources in not only trying to deny the engage from ROCCAT, but also that Cabo and Djoko were in the bottom half of the map. They decided, let's just rush it down. We have the damage. We have reached that point in the game where we can take this objective, and if nothing else, we can force the fight that we so desperately want. Vitality can't get the collapse. They can't push ROCCAT back. ROCCAT now get the ban. The big question for ROCCAT is, how do they utilize this? They could look to take the dragon, but their priority should be getting as many towers as possible. They have great wave clear, and they have great ways to start these fights. But we saw in their game versus Origin that it doesn't matter how many barons you get. That doesn't mean teams always know how to use them.
So true, so true. The biggest thing, though, about that series for me was just how much better Game 3 was. ROCCAT, after 2 grueling games, came back and demonstrated a level of performance against Origin that they'd not shown in the 2 prior. Priority was going to be the dragon, but now with a gigantic minion wave in the bottom lane, and some support from the rest of the squad, Betsy is going mid, while the rest of ROCCAT are coming down to the bot lane. Maxlore is going to get stunned up by the time bomb. On the hunt, buy some time. Maxlore is literally blown away. Don't think that savagery hop was great, but while Vitality were getting a kill in the mid lane, Betsy took a lot of damage onto the tower. Thank goodness that Sundisk buying some additional time. And look, to focus the towers. They gave up a kill, but they're getting all of this advantage on the map.
So you do have to criticize Maxlore for his somewhat poor pathing, but Betsy, he might now be in some serious trouble.
Ryze, slide.
He's good. He has Ryze as well. Just hit Nukeduck once. The teleport though.
Do it. Redemption will buy some time here. Betsy, he gets rid of Cabo. Cabo flashes over the wall and not going to be able to get the kill. The slide away. Wadid saving. Now all of a sudden, Nukeduck's in trouble. Hjarnan gets the kill and Cabo forced to run for his life. A teleport, a flash, and a kill. All expended for nothing.
Props to Betsy for buying so much time. Nukeduck should have given up so long ago, but he was pretty determined to get Betsy. He knew they had the teleport from Cabo. They knew that they had the ability to get the collapse down, but Betsy just rationed his summoner spells, rationed his abilities so effectively that the rest of ROCCAT could come in and save his life.
That's chasing the loss, you know? Giving up towers, giving up Baron, Vitality under pressure to make a decision. They chase an Azir, and unfortunately overcommit. Give up kills, give up another tower now, as Vitality are being pulled across the map. And if you looked at this game in two parts, game one, completely dominated by Djoko and Vitality. Part two, from the mid-game onwards, ROCCAT got the Dragons. ROCCAT set up a great Baron play 5 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago. And now all of a sudden, they are the ones looking to break open Vitality's base.
But this is where things get very difficult for ROCCAT, because there is so much poke, there's so much threat from Vitality of getting a collapse down onto ROCCAT as they're split apart. But ROCCAT, they don't care, they're just going to force through the base.
Yes, the threat is there, but if ROCCAT can split up appropriately, Phaxi may once again give his life going very low. The redemption heal from ROCCAT will buy them some time, and Betsy, with the Emperor's Divide as a disengaged tool, standing as the last one to leave. I mean, mid turret went incredibly low. That's a couple autos away. That's a very successful use of that Baron buff on behalf of ROCCAT.
So let's backtrack to this play earlier on. You can see the TP from Cabo. They thought it was promising, but look at your mini-map. You can see the Sivir and the Malzahar already making their way down. A great Shurima shuffle, flashing just at the right time for Betsy. Enables Wadid and Phaxi to get this double prong collapse off down onto Vitality. And the response from ROCCAT was very good, but also you have to criticize Vitality for just over-chasing when they really shouldn't have.
Yep, the over-chase. Not what they're going to be looking for. And, you know, we hit the narrative, or we hit what's at stake in this game very heavily right at the start. But for ROCCAT, what a confidence boost it would be to pick up 2 series wins on the weekend. They took down Origin in a very hard-fought, 3-game series. And now they're coming up against Vitality, a squad who, expectation-wise, was definitely higher up the table at the beginning of the split, and Vitality not living up to it.
But I am still reserved on this game, because while ROCCAT made a great decision around the Baron, while as of this moment are playing pretty well, they're still yet to close out the game. And it is your ability to close that is very important when looking ahead, when looking at possible playoffs, looking at possible relegation, because it's a really big skill that separates some of the bottom teams from the top teams. And if you leave too many windows for Vitality to come back in, I mean, we saw it from Fnatic, right? Varus in the late game is so difficult to deal with. This Ryze cannot afford to be underestimated. So ROCCAT, I want to see them now being more proactive. The Baron is going to be spawning in about a minute 20. Vision should be invested in the top side of the map. They need to have control over that in order to close out this game.
The alternative, Elder Dragon's up as well, so if ROCCAT do not prioritize one of those objectives and try to get greedy for both, that could be an opportunity for Vitality. Red buff is picked up, and it looked like it was Hjarnan that got a Maxlore tagged by the Chain of Corruption. ROCCAT simply overstepping their bounds. Vitality pick off an easy kill. Was that worth it for a red buff?
But this is what we were saying, right? Baron is up in 1 minute, and ROCCAT are fighting for a red buff. It's understandable that they want to try and get some vision, and it's good that Vitality are responding by trying to fight ROCCAT over this vision, but ROCCAT, there was no need for them to commit that hard. They know they have the pushing lanes in their favor. Just send Phaxi up top lane, get him pushing that lane, have your wave clear Hjarnan either go mid or bot, do the same for Betsy, wait for the minion waves to push in, then go for the vision. Why try and force a fight with Vitality right now when they have a better setup in their own river, when they are the ones that have the pushing lanes top, when they're the ones that can get the collapse? Like, you can see, look at top lane, you can see a big minion wave stacking up, bottom lane a big minion wave stacking up, and ROCCAT, they've just walked in and said, we would like your red buff now, and Vitality have said, no.
Yep.
And then they end up losing Maxlore over it. So it's this risk versus gain, right, you know? And red buff isn't worth risking it.
Absolutely not, because take the next, minutes of gameplay. Look at all the vision Vitality's now got around the Baron buff. ROCCAT could have been defending that, holding that ground. Because there's no ways Vitality wants to face check into Azir, Renekton, Sivir, Malzahar. Talking about the Malzahar, there's 3 QSSs on the side of Vitality. Not touched too much on the items at 37 minutes. Edge of Night, Black Cleaver for Djoko, so he's pretty beefy and tanky. Wit's End to complement the Frozen Mallet, and Blade of the Rune King for Cabo. And Hjarnan is where a lot of damage will come from on ROCCAT's side. He's got his armor pin, Phantom Dancer, etc.
Do you know what I'd really like to see on Renekton?
What would you like to see on Renekton?
A righteous gore. think it's really good for engages, and I actually think it really helps a lot with his ability to stick to people, because it not only gives you a big speed boost, it gives your teammates a big speed boost, but then when you get close, it also gives you a big slow as well. And it gives you HP. It does give you mana, which isn't that useful, but I feel it's actually a really valuable tool. But that's just like a personal preference as Phaxi ends up getting caught out.
Well, maybe in this case, having two supporting team members in Rengar that can make himself quicker and Hjarnan that can make everyone quicker. Yeah. Maybe that could be why. But let's find out. Is this a 50-50 or can ROCCAT kill Baron before Cabo can do any more damage? There's no teleport used just yet. Peel away from Baron. There we go. On the thrilling hunt from Hjarnan and Maxlore. They're looking for Vitality. Redemption's coming down on both sides. Cabo's not committing to a teleport. He's looking for the base. Inhibitor turret is broken and Cabo's not done yet. He continues to siege and put pressure on the bottom lane inhibitor. Cabo will get this one as Phaxi finishes his recall. Taking a look back at the Baron pit, it will be Baron for ROCCAT. Cabo, he's not even got the inhib yet. This is a one-on-one. Slicing Maelstrom can be used to buy some time. Phaxi's not really going to be able to do a whole lot, and Cabo, lightning rushing away. Will he get to safety? I don't know. Flashes over the wall. How many to chase? Wadid comes out. No nether grasp either. And uses the exhaust. How pivotal will the exhaust be? Baron to ROCCAT and a potential fight for Elder.
The fact that Vitality get themselves the Baron is still a good trade for them. But if they lose this Elder Dragon, it will not matter as Wadid, he's now in trouble.
All right, Wadid's life is at risk here. Thrill of the hunt from Maxlore. Not really going to dissuade Vitality as Elder Dragon gets picked up as well. TP. But it's a 5-on-4. Teleport from behind. There's no slicing Maelstrom. The TP time takes too long. Cabochard simply too late to the fight. He's trying to trade with Betsy, running for his life with the surge, eating a couple of autos from those sand soldiers, and the conquering sand sends him packing. Hjarnan, 3 shots, Nukeduck. Boomerang Blade is sidestepped and Vitality. They lose Elder, they lose Baron, they lose Cabo and Nukeduck, and they might just lose this game.
Now those are some very big death timers on the side of Vitality. ROCCAT, they have great wave clear, they have the ability to push into the base of Vitality, and right now I don't know if Vitality are going to be able to stop what should be a base-breaking siege from ROCCAT.
ROCCAT are working their way forward. Empowered recall from Phaxi, he can teleport back in if needed. Time bomb comes out, where's the rest of the support? Maxlore's pushing in the bottom wave. There's another cannon minion. Shuffles into firing range. Mid lane inhibitor's going to drop. Remember, there's at least a super minion pushing into Maxlore. That's what's going to be slowing down that push ever so slightly. Nukeduck and Cabo respawning in 4 seconds time. ROCCAT take another inhibitor turret. They take another inhibitor. And how much further will they push?
Well, right now it's 5v5. That is a lot of damage onto Djoko.
He's already killed. Betsy takes him down in what ends up being a solo kill. Redemption coming down here from Vitality. That heals him up for a few seconds longer. 5-on-4. Vitality trying to defend their base. Maxlore's found Nukeduck. Gets his GA. Nukeduck without the ability to put damage down. Can't help his team. Cabo's shut down as well. Hjarnan's got another turret. Hjarnan's got another kill. Hjarnan leads ROCCAT to the Nexus and to a 1-0 advantage.
ROCCAT, they struggled in the early game. They bought time, Vitality, they weren't properly able to take advantage of this early split pushing lead that they had.
Yep.
And then that enabled ROCCAT to just say, hey, you know what, we've got 2 items. Why don't we go for a Baron? Like, they tried to force a play in mid, they tried to make stuff happen, they saw a window of opportunity, and they took it, and that's great to see from ROCCAT.
This game had a playbook for Vitality that read until about 18 minutes.
Yeah.
And then there was just no more writing. Very good early game, very good early towers. It almost felt like the advantage was so good, it was like, oh, well, we got that. Like,
that worked better than intended.
What do we do now? But then again, the composition from ROCCAT also was a determining factor, right? How do you push past a Sivir? How do you push past an Azir? How do you deal with a Rengar? It felt like there was compositional answers to what steps Vitality could have taken, and maybe that's why it stalled out.
The biggest problem for Vitality was often this idea behind utilizing vision to take the next objective, right? So we saw they did eventually make that move with Ryze, where he actually then went with Cabo into the bottom lane, and what they needed to do was set up a 1-4 kind of play, which unfortunately for Vitality, they never got around to do.
They did not. It was a 0-3-2. It got a tower, but it didn't get them the game. To give you a deeper insight onto how this game went down, let's head to the analyst desk.
Thank you so much, QuickShot. And, well, before the game, we were praising ROCCAT's, oops, there we go, early game. But Vitality, though, they put up a good fight, and Djoko does when Vitality has an early game, what he does best. Yeah,
and Djoko with a little bit of an odd timing gank mid when you look at what you'd normally expect, but heads into mid against Azir, level 2. Perks, you were saying, oh, you know, it doesn't always work, but this one, Betsy had just taken a bad trade. We want to take a look at some of the plays that Djoko made in the early game. The cheese gank, as you
Nothing he can do.
Nothing Betsy can do here?
So what Djoko did is like he did Raptors, a red buff, and took Crab, and then he saw where Rengar was, and then he ganked mid, and Betsy was like hugging the wrong side, and he also took a bad trade. Like Azir is just supposed to push Ryze in, and he like didn't get. I don't know. It was just a bit strange, I think. And there's some Fiesta in the top lane, like trading Dalbas and stuff. And Vitality had like a best early game they could possibly want. Like Ryze winning against Azir, which shouldn't happen. Like he can perma push him in and like move to any side, and they could. And Kennen was 2 levels up with Dalbas, 2 times CS, took enemy turret. With Graves at like minute 6 or something, and they still lost. So.
And we want to take a look at why. We want to look at why exactly Vitality stumbled. And to do this, we need to kind of zoom out. You can see the bot tower has already fallen in favor of Vitality. They're playing with Varus, but they put Varus down in the bottom lane. We're 13 minutes into the game at this point. Perks, you're saying he should be going mid at this point and just wave clearing, and they basically win the game?
I think at the point when bot turret falls down with Varus, you can either go bot and push bot lane in and then go mid, but since they can't push bot in because it's Sivir Malzahar, they should just go mid straight, and then Ryze can go bot and just farm because Sivir Malzahar can actually like kill Ryze like never, and he can just farm at the turret, and Grace can go bot, relieve pressure from Ryze. They can go mid together while Varus is poking Azir and like getting waves in his face, and Azir is overall really weak versus poke champs. So if Varus was just mid, Azir would kind of be really useless and would have to base most of the time, and they could just collapse mid. And taking into consideration that Kennen is also stomping top and super hard, like he can push under enemy tier 2. So they had so many threats, but they didn't use any of them. And then there was this dive by ROCCAT, which was also funny. So.
and that dive was kind of where Vitality were a little fortunate that ROCCAT couldn't quite execute it. They took a long time to get there, but just highlighting how Vitality theoretically had this composition. Everyone's talking about, like, Varus, you get it, and somehow you just win the game by clearing mid and pushing, and then you don't lose mid tower for the entire game.
So can you make sense of why, you know, this is obviously something that these players know, right? Because this is something that has been happening all the time. Varus is a very high priority pick, and now they get all the cards in their favor. So what blocks a team like Vitality to then say, well, obviously Varus should go mid now?
Well, they obviously had some planning game because there's always a plan behind everything you do, or there should be. So it's not like Varus should just be auto-patting bot. Like there must be a reason why he's doing that. And I don't know what is that reason. I would have to ask the players, like the team, like what is the reason. So maybe they just thought like something else in game. There was something better to do, but it was not the case, I think. And it's just like that, I think.
I like the ROCCAT were a lot more decisive with a later game plan when they started taking the Barons, you know, spotting the potentially Vitality were on Dragon and actually rushing it down with the Azir. 2 Barons in, and they're starting to actually push objectives. It's still a little slow. But
there was a difference between the first and the second Baron, because the first Baron you said, wow, I'm actually surprised at how ROCCAT played this Baron.
I think the first Baron was good because they saw Graves doing Dragon and Kennen top, so they didn't have, how is it called? They didn't hesitate. Yeah, they didn't hesitate. So they just went Nash and rushed it, and they even started to turn a bit, and then they finished Nash, and then all ran out. Which was I was actually surprised. It was a good Nash by them, you know. It was obviously bad by Vitality. It's always a double-edged sword, but it was good. It was good by ROCCAT. And the second Nash, Azir was I don't know, doing mid or something. I don't know what Azir was doing. Like he was on a flank, and
he's going to flank. That was the plan.
Yeah, Azir should not flank, but. They got Nash again, so and they had Sivir with 4 items, and I think the plan from ROCCAT were always pretty good. Like if they can just survive the early game with these late game scaling champs, it's an easier winning condition than snowballing perfectly early game. I think late game champs is better for these teams. Yeah,
it's almost the opposite of what you say of when you watch a top team that's just left. You think, oh, bank on the early game, but when those teams are at the bottom of the table, it's almost inevitably gonna get a bit later in the game.
Yeah, and I think for this matchup, Betsy's Azir is actually pretty good fit for purpose against Vitality. They didn't punish him outside of that play at level 2. He was able to create pressure by putting the tower down, which does open up a bit more on the map. So I think for ROCCAT, that's maybe another pick to watch for Betsy, Swain and Azir.
Right, so ROCCAT, if they win another game, that gives them a huge boost if they win 2 series on the week. But what does Vitality have to do? Do they just match and also go with a late game comp?
Well, usually I would say this game they had a free win, because they did. But since it's Vitality we're talking about, maybe they should also go for some late game champs too.
Right.
Like some scaling champs.
Give us a really long game.
Yeah, some 50 minutes fiesta.
All right, well, before we go to break, just letting you guys know that next week we will be celebrating all things at the top as Top Lane Week kicks off on Monday. We'll bring you interviews, some educational content on how you can be a better top laner, and on Friday we'll be broadcasting a special top lane focused stream just for you, and it will be with Soaz and Odowamne there giving their expertise, so that'll be super exciting to listen to. And for now, we're gonna take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Game 2 between ROCCAT and Vitality is right around the corner.
Keep going. No, don't be scared. Nice. There's some flash, so yeah.
Stunned up. Cabochard looking for more end of the line. And the last kill goes to Cabo.
Nice.
Eating a couple of autos from those sand soldiers, and the conquering sand sends him packing. Hjarnan, 3 shots, Nukeduck.
The back.
Hjarnan leads ROCCAT to the Nexus and to a 1-0 advantage.
Nice. Good bit. Good job, guys.